Greetings and welcome to an LGR Quickie, and today I would love to talk about shareware, because there's something about shareware, specifically MS-DOS shareware, that just gets all five of my senses tingling simultaneously. And don't ask the specifics of some of those senses and how these floppy disks will actually affect those, but I assure you that they do. Including an all-important sixth sense, which is the nostalgic sense, and it's a very individual thing, something that's very personal, and that's why I want to look at today's game, Galaga 94. Now, this is one of the many games that I grabbed off of the AOL Games channel back in the day, and I specifically grabbed this for two reasons. One, because it was 58 kilobytes, so it was nice for the dial-up we had, and it was also a game with Galaga in the title, and it was free, it wasn't in the arcades. I knew Galaga was my dad's favorite game, so I grabbed it hoping that maybe he would be able to get some interest out of it, but it turns out that I was the one that played it most, so go figure. But Galaga 94, right? Well, this is not endorsed in any way or related to the Galaga series by Namco, because of course not. This was during the time of just bedroom programmer people making stuff and putting it out there on BBSs and the internet for free. In fact, this is a subset of shareware called malware. The creator of this game, Arnold Pichler of Austria, put it out there and just said, you know what, I don't want payment for this. In fact, probably nobody's going to buy it anyway. So what I want you to do instead is just send me a mailed letter or an email, and I will send you the full game for free. I never did that, but I did in the future find some copies floating around on the interwebs for people that did do that, and I'll show both this original demo version that I had as a kid and the full version here, which in fact when you start this thing up, it looks very demo scene, very cracktro in my eyes, and I get a little bit of a sense of that just looking at not just the text and the imagery, but what he's saying himself. Right down here, he's basically just says, I'm doing this for the greetings, not the money. Well, as for the gameplay itself, well, it doesn't actually have a whole lot in common with the original game of Galaga, or even Galaga 88, or subsequent console versions like 90 and 91. As you might be able to guess, he was kind of going for that, calling this 94, like, oh, this is even better, but really it's not. It's a step backwards in some ways, and a step sideways in other ways. What I mean by that is, you're able to shoot 3 projectiles at a time. You have bombs, you have shields. The enemies come down in completely different forms and waves than they do in the Galaga games, and they're pretty randomized as far as I can tell. So you can get some enemies from way later on, at the very beginning sometimes. There are 2 aspects that really separate Galaga 94 from some of the other Galaga type games out there even at the time, and one is the fact that you can upgrade your ship by this little green guy that goes across the screen at certain percentage points, like when you wipe out a certain percentage of enemies near the beginning of each level and then near the end, the little guy will come across and taunt you with power-ups. So it can be things like points or shields or an extra life, but it can also be extra pieces for your ship. It'll add a left and right piece, and also the ability to shoot more projectiles simultaneously, so you can have up to 12 projectiles going up the screen at once. It's pretty crazy, but you're going to need it. You can have enemies from much later on come in early, because the type of enemies that you'll get aren't planned in advance. They're not specific to each level. They'll just come across at any time, and the more that you play, you're going to get enemies that have multiple shields, and they will start to come at you in huge waves, like it just bunches of them all at the same time, dropping more and more bombs along the way, which their bombs always looked a bit like fried eggs or like bird poop or something. At least they did as a kid. They kind of do now. It just kind of sticks in your head. And then every handful of levels you'll get a boss, which looks completely absurd. You got the flying spaghetti monster, you got the alien playing a piano, you've got the... I don't even know what that is, but these guys are really just there to somewhat get in your way. They're hardly any challenge unless you crank the difficulty way up, and in that case they're dropping bombs all the time, so it is pretty tough, but it's a tough game anyway. The constant progression of difficulty of these enemies getting more and more shields with each level, and the fact that every time you die you lose all your power-ups completely, it's really interesting. You know, you're not dealing with ships coming down to suck your ship up and capturing it, and then you have to recapture it. No, it's none of that going on. It's just these power-ups, and you strategically sometimes don't want to kill some of the enemies. You want to leave them until later so it's easier to get the little green guy that comes across, because it's going to be really hard when the enemies are coming in to get the green guy without getting blown up by bombs. There's some fascinating stuff going on with this. Maybe just because I've played it so much, I can't exactly say that this is a brilliant game or anything, but I did have a lot of fun with it as a kid, and I've had much more fun with it as an adult too, finally getting the full version, which is 2.1, I think is the last version that was ever released. This game just has interesting personality. Combine it with all the weird colors and the strange graphical shareware style of the time, it just really stands out to me, even though it's not the most spectacularly memorable game otherwise. There's just a lot of things that add up, and well, it makes it spectacularly memorable, at least to my sixth nostalgic sense. Well, that's it for Galaga 94. Thank you very much for watching.